At this moment, Luffy had fully recovered. It surprised everyone. He even ate all of their food supplies. They didn't expect Luffy to survive Magellan's poison. And he recovered in less than 20 hours. Ivankov realized this was a miracle. It made everyone very happy. Luffy saw Bon Clay collapse. It made him worried. Ivankov said he was just too exhausted. So, Luffy thanked Ivankov, because he had saved them. But, Ivankov said he only helped a little. While Bon Clay had cheered Luffy on for hours. It caused him to lose his voice. Luffy remembered Bon Clay once said they were friends. So, he wouldn't let Luffy die. Luffy immediately bowed his head to thank Bon Clay. Then, Inazuma handed Luffy his straw hat and clothes. He reminded Luffy that he needed more rest. But, Luffy said he didn't have time. Because he wanted to go save Ace immediately. He realized Ace was on the floor below. Ivankov didn't understand why Luffy was so determined to save Ace. Suddenly, Luffy asked Ivankov, "Are you going to escape from this prison?" Because Bon Clay's goal was to get him out of here. It surprised everyone. But, Ivankov said he didn't want to escape yet. Because the war between Whitebeard and the Marines would shake the world. However, Ivankov was waiting for that man to make a move. That man was Monkey D. Dragon, the supreme commander of the Revolutionary Army. Luffy said, "Are you talking about my dad?" Ivankov said that when Luffy's father takes action, he will reappear before the world once again. Suddenly, Ivankov was shocked, because Dragon was Luffy's father. But, he couldn't believe it. Luffy explained that his grandpa told him. So, he had never seen his father's face. Ivankov realized Luffy didn't seem to be lying. Because he was the new rising star of the pirate world. And his extraordinary vitality was here before him. So, Ivankov asked where Luffy was from. Luffy said, "I'm from the East Blue." Ivankov remembered. He always saw Dragon looking toward the east. So, he thought Dragon's family must be there. At that moment, Ivankov thought Luffy and Ace were both Dragon's sons. So, he decided he would help rescue Ace. It made Luffy very happy. Ivankov said he was a friend of Luffy's father. And he was also a commander in the Revolutionary Army. So, his mission was to fully support Luffy. It made everyone very happy. While Luffy was feeling very excited. Suddenly, he collapsed. It made everyone worried. Ivankov realized Luffy was exhausted. So, he injected adrenaline hormones into him. It would boost Luffy's strength. However, Luffy would suffer side effects after a few days. At that moment, Magellan was preparing to head down to level 6 to escort Ace out. Because Ace's execution time was approaching. However, he urgently needed to go to the toilet. Because he had used too much poison during his battle with Luffy. Outside Impel Down, many marine battleships had gathered. Their mission was to transport Ace to Marineford. Meanwhile, Luffy was full of energy. So, he along with Ivankov and Inazuma, rushed down to level 6. Suddenly, they encountered a pack of wolves. But, they easily defeated them. As they ran through the gate, the prison guards spotted them. It surprised the guards. Because Luffy was with Ivankov and Inazuma, Hannyabal immediately ordered the level 6 traps to be activated. At that moment, the guards blocked Luffy's group. But, Luffy defeated them. Meanwhile, Magellan had reached Ace. He was going to take Ace to Marineford. On Luffy's side, the guards were still trying to stop him. But, they made it through the traps. And Ivankov took a guard as their guide. Hannyabal saw his subordinates being defeated. It made him furious. Then, Luffy reached the prisoner cells. Ivankov said only legendary criminals were held here. So, Luffy called out Ace's name. Ivankov told him he couldn't find Ace that way. So, he injected the guard with female hormones. It turned him into a woman. Unexpectedly, the guard liked her new form. So, she pointed them to where Ace was being held. When Luffy got there, they realized Ace had already been taken away. Because they had arrived too late. Suddenly, Jinbei saw the straw hat. He realized the boy was Luffy, Ace's younger brother. So, Jinbei told him to hurry and chase after Ace. Because Magellan had just taken him away. Luffy didn't know who he was. But, Luffy decided to trust Jinbei. Meanwhile, Jinbei remembered that Ace used to talk about Luffy. He always did foolish things. While Ace was being led out of the elevator, Luffy's group arrived at the elevator. But, it was a trap. Even their escape route was blocked. Suddenly, Hannyabal released anesthetic gas. It caused Luffy to pass out. Ivankov realized the situation was bad. At that moment, Magellan told Ace that Luffy had reached level 6. So, he would capture Luffy and lock him in Ace's cell. It made Ace worried. He attacked the guards to try and save Luffy. But, Ace was easily captured by Magellan. Meanwhile, Magellan still couldn't understand how Luffy had survived his poison. At that time, Buggy and Mr. 3 had reached level 3. They were exhausted. By chance, they encountered Sphinx. So, they were chased again. Meanwhile, the level 6 prisoners were terrified. Because the anesthetic gas was spreading everywhere. So, Inazuma used his scissors to cut the ground like fabric. And he immediately sealed off the staircase. It turned out Inazuma had eaten the snip-snip fruit. Thanks to that, Luffy woke up. But, Luffy scolded Inazuma, because the stairs were the only way to chase after Ace. Ivankov said they were too late. If they went to the top floor now, they would have to fight many powerful enemies. And Ivankov said that Ace had already been handed over to the Marines. At that moment, Magellan was escorting Ace outside to deliver him to the Marines. But, Ace was still worried about Luffy. While Ivankov advised Luffy to give up, he was still determined to go to Marineford. It shocked Ivankov. He said it was a war between two mighty forces. Luffy wouldn't be able to do anything there. However, Luffy refused to give up. It made Ivankov see a reflection of dragon in Luffy. Suddenly, a prisoner said if they freed him, he could help them reach the upper level. It surprised Luffy, because that prisoner was Crocodile. It turned out Crocodile's goal was to take down Whitebeard. So, he promised to help Luffy escape from here. But, Luffy didn't trust him, because Crocodile had once tried to destroy Vivi's kingdom. However, Ivankov told Luffy to release him, because they needed his strength to reach Marineford. Crocodile saw Ivankov, and it made him uncomfortable. It turned out Ivankov had met Crocodile back when he was a nobody. So, he had a way to keep Crocodile from betraying them, because he knew a weakness from Crocodile's past. It made Crocodile angry. Suddenly, the nearby prisoners also wanted to be freed. So, Ivankov put them all to sleep. However, Jinbei also asked Luffy to release him, because he was a friend of Ace, and he had heard many stories about Luffy from Ace. Luffy saw how much he wanted to save Ace. So, Luffy agreed. It surprised Inazuma, but he still trusted Luffy. Then they freed Crocodile and Jinbei. At that moment, the guards began attacking, but Luffy's group escaped to the upper level. Hannyabal found out that Crocodile and Jinbei had joined Luffy. It made him furious. Thus, he immediately reported it to the vice jail managers, so they could hunt down Luffy's group. Meanwhile, Ivankov injected adrenaline hormones into Mr. 2, helping him recover. After that, they all moved up to level 5 together. Ivankov excitedly told everyone they were going to create an unprecedented chaos in Impel Down. Meanwhile, Ace was being transported by the Marines to Marineford. Magellan saw that Ace had left Impel Down. So, he decided to return and deal with the chaos inside the prison. At this point, Luffy's group had reached the upper level. Crocodile immediately turned the door into sand. It turned out he had eaten the sand fruit, which allowed him to turn anything into sand. So, he destroyed the door, scaring the prison guards. They attacked Crocodile, but his body was made of sand, so they couldn't hurt him. Then, Crocodile counterattacked the guards. Luffy also joined the battle. Meanwhile, Jinbei launched a powerful punch, defeating the guards. At this point, they had taken down many guards there, causing fear among them. So, Luffy's group continued moving forward, while Buggy and Mr. 3 were being surrounded by lions on level 2. At that moment, Crocodile arrived at a prison cell on level 4. It turned out he wanted to rescue Mr. 1. On Buggy and Mr. 3's side, they saw that the prison guards were gathering all forces down to level 4. Which made them very happy, because it was their chance to escape from Impel Down. Then Buggy and Mr. 3 created replicas of the cell keys, allowing the prisoners to be freed. So, the guard in the control room reported this to Hannyabal, which shocked him. Meanwhile, all the prisoners there started seeing Buggy as their captain. And on level 4, Luffy's group also defeated all the guards. Ivankov even freed many prisoners who rushed outside. Mr. 1 also joined Luffy's group, leaving Hannyabal helpless. He didn't know how to handle the situation. Suddenly, Ivankov injected hormones into his own face, making his head bigger. Then, he used the move, Hell Wink, to defeat the soldiers. Luffy's group kept defeating the prison guards, making them terrified, because they didn't have enough strength to stop them. Meanwhile, a vice admiral told Ace this would be his last chance to see the sun. Then, they arrived at the gates of Marineford. At that moment, Sengoku received a report that Blackbeard had taken a marine ship to Impel Down. While the jailers were trying to stop Blackbeard from entering inside, he used a devil fruit, causing the jailers to be swallowed by darkness. On Hannibal's side, when he heard the news that Blackbeard had infiltrated Impel Down, it made him fall into despair, because he would never become the chief warden, leaving Hannibal unsure of what to do. Suddenly, Magellan contacted him. He said he had finished dealing with the prisoners on level 2. Meanwhile, Buggy was angry, because Magellan had blocked his escape route. At that moment, Magellan informed Hannibal that he had decided to release Shiryu, shocking Hannibal, and he told Hannibal to try to protect level 4 until he arrived there, helping Hannibal regain his spirit. While Luffy's group was still running quickly to the upper levels, the jailers on level 6 released Shiryu. Because he was the ex-head jailer of Impel Down, Magellan ordered Shiryu to deal with Blackbeard, which excited him. Unexpectedly, he immediately attacked the jailers, because his goal was to take revenge on Magellan. At this moment, Ivankov had released many prisoners on level 4. So, the jailers were still trying to stop them. Ivankov easily defeated the Blugori, surprising the jailers. Then, Ivankov told Luffy to keep moving forward. Sadie immediately ordered her beasts to attack him. Ivankov's followers tried to stop them, but the beasts were very strong. They quickly defeated the prisoners. Suddenly, Luffy, Jinbei, and Crocodile charged forward. They took down all 3 beasts together with just one strike, shocking the jailers. Meanwhile, Buggy's group was still stuck on level 2, because Magellan had blocked their escape route. Suddenly, Buggy told Mr. 3 to use his wax. Unexpectedly, Mr. 3's ability could block Magellan's poison, causing the prisoners to worship Buggy even more. Mr. 3 suggested that Buggy imitate Luffy. So, he coated Buggy's hand in wax. But, Buggy's attack was unexpectedly too weak. It almost caused him to lose his arm, making Buggy furious. So, he kept yelling at Magellan, while the prisoners were still worshipping Buggy. On Blackbeard's side, he encountered Shiryu on level 1, because Magellan had assigned Shiryu the task of stopping Blackbeard, which excited him. While Magellan trusted that Shiryu could stop Blackbeard, his own job was to suppress the riot on level 4. He believed Hannibal could hold them off until he arrived. Meanwhile, Luffy's group was still running toward the upper levels, but they were stopped by Sadie, making Luffy angry and ready to fight her. However, Ivankov held him back, because Luffy needed to conserve his strength. So, Ivankov decided to fight Sadie instead. Suddenly, Ivankov injected female hormones, turning himself into a woman. On Blackbeard's crew's side, they were advancing toward level 2, surprising the jailers, because Shiryu shouldn't be defeated so easily by a warlord. At that moment, Ivankov moved extremely fast. He continuously attacked Sadie, but Sadie used her whip to capture and take him down. Unexpectedly, Ivankov wasn't hurt at all. It turned out that when Ivankov becomes female, his body becomes more flexible and soft, which allowed him to easily defeat Sadie. So, they continued advancing to the next level. Suddenly, Hannibal appeared. Luffy didn't know who he was. Inazuma said he was the vice warden of Impel Down. When the prisoners charged forward, they were immediately caught by the jailers. It turned out Hannibal had gathered 1,000 guards to stop them, which made Luffy worried. So, he decided to fight Hannibal. Meanwhile, Hannibal was also determined to capture Luffy. This excited the jailers, because it was rare to see Hannibal so serious. Then Hannibal spun his weapon, creating fire, and he attacked Luffy, which made Luffy angry, because he didn't have time to stay there any longer. So, Luffy decided to use Gear 2, and he unleashed a flurry of punches on Hannibal, defeating him. Meanwhile, Magellan was rushing toward Luffy's location. At that moment, Hannibal had been defeated. He recalled 20 years ago, His first day working at Impel Down. Back when Magellan was the vice warden. Which left Hannyabal dissatisfied, because he was only assigned to check security for new prisoners. Suddenly, he met a beautiful female prisoner named Olive. Hannyabal was captivated by her. Unexpectedly, she stole Hannibal's guard uniform, just as she was about to escape. Luckily, Magellan arrived, so he immediately put her back into a cell. Then, he scolded Hannibal and taught him how to do his job properly. Meanwhile, Luffy was leaving. Suddenly, Hannibal grabbed his leg, because he refused to give up. Hannibal kept attacking Luffy, which excited the jailers greatly. So, Luffy continued using Gear 2, determined to save Ace. Then, both sides clashed fiercely. Even though Luffy was much stronger than Hannibal, he kept standing back up and blocking Luffy, getting injured over and over again. However, Luffy didn't have much time left. On Buggy's side, he didn't know how to get past Magellan's poison wall. But, he didn't want to lose face in front of the prisoners. So, Buggy pretended to pee to buy some time. At that moment, Blackbeard arrived. He absorbed Magellan's poison using the power of the dark fruit, allowing him to continue advancing to level 2. While Buggy still had no idea what to do, he heard the announcement that the poison wall had disappeared, which made Buggy very happy. The prisoners thought it was Buggy's doing, so they continued escaping together. Meanwhile, Luffy kept knocking down Hannibal. Even though he was seriously injured, he still refused to give up, because he believed all criminals were evil, and they had to be locked up here, so they wouldn't go out and hurt innocent people. Hannibal was determined to stop them, while Luffy only cared about saving Ace. Suddenly, the guards behind Hannibal were attacked. It turned out Blackbeard had arrived. He immediately defeated Hannibal. Luffy recognized him as the man he met before. Jinbei became furious, because Blackbeard was the one who defeated Ace and turned him over to the Marines. When Luffy heard his name was Blackbeard, he became enraged. Blackbeard warned Luffy that his brother's execution was drawing near. It turned out Blackbeard's original goal was to capture Luffy, so he could gain recognition from the world government. But when Ace found out that Luffy was Blackbeard's target, he was determined to defeat Blackbeard. That led to Ace's defeat. Blackbeard said Ace took Luffy's place. If not, Luffy would have been the one he killed. This made Luffy furious, so he decided to fight Blackbeard. And Luffy struck Blackbeard with an incredibly powerful attack, sending him flying into the wall. When Luffy continued to attack him, Blackbeard used the power of the dark fruit, pulling Luffy in and grabbing him. Then, Blackbeard slammed Luffy into the ground, injuring him. Crocodile didn't understand. Luffy was made of rubber, so why was he in pain? Blackbeard said Luffy reacted just like Ace did, because Ace's devil fruit powers had also been nullified by him. And that's why Ace got hurt. It turned out the dark fruit lets him absorb devil fruit abilities, rendering the user's powers useless. Everyone was shocked, as Luffy still kept attacking Blackbeard. Jinbei stopped him, because Luffy couldn't waste any more time there. He needed to save Ace quickly. Blackbeard admitted that Luffy was very strong, and Crocodile realized Blackbeard was the one who replaced him as a warlord. But Crocodile didn't understand why Blackbeard had come here, since he was supposed to respond to the world government's summons at Marineford. However, Blackbeard said everything was part of his plan. Suddenly, everyone realized that Magellan had arrived. So, Ivankov told Luffy to run. As all the prisoners tried to escape, Ivankov was still being held back by Sadie. But he immediately grabbed her whip and launched a counterattack on Sadie. Meanwhile, Luffy kept staring at Blackbeard. Suddenly, the prisoners were blocked by Minotaurus, which surprised Bon Clay, because he and Luffy had already defeated Minotaurus before. Crocodile explained that it had eaten a zone-type devil fruit, so its recovery ability was very high. At that moment, Luffy said, "I will save Ace no matter what." But Blackbeard didn't deny it, because anything could happen, and he had once told Luffy that the Sky Island really existed. Blackbeard also firmly believed that One Piece was real. In just a few more hours, Blackbeard would shake the entire world with his performance. Meanwhile, Minotaurus was still blocking the prisoners on their way to level 3. But Luffy was not afraid at all. He walked alone toward Minotaurus. Suddenly, Minotaurus attacked Luffy. So, he activated Gear 2, and Luffy struck it with a powerful blow, which shocked everyone, because Luffy defeated it in a single hit. When Magellan arrived, he saw that Sadie had been tied up, and he encountered Blackbeard's crew, which greatly amused Blackbeard. Unexpectedly, Magellan attacked them with poison, causing Blackbeard extreme pain. Magellan realized he didn't have time to waste here. Suddenly, he saw Hannyabal had been defeated. Magellan recognized that Hannyabal had fought hard. Then, Magellan saw the prison guards had also been taken down, which made him furious. Magellan couldn't understand how Luffy was still alive. Meanwhile, Luffy sensed Magellan behind them. So, Magellan started chasing after them. He had now reached level 3, and many prisoners were poisoned by his attack. Meanwhile, Luffy's group had reached the stairs to level 2. Ivankov decided to hold Magellan back. Inazuma then used his scissors to cut the staircase, to stop Magellan from following Luffy. But, Luffy was still worried about Ivankov. While Ivankov was now facing off against Magellan, Magellan couldn't understand what Ivankov was planning. Suddenly, Ivankov injected himself with hormones, transforming back into a man. Then, Ivankov launched an attack on Magellan. Unexpectedly, Magellan summoned 3 Hydra heads. He said Ivankov could only buy Luffy a little more time. But, Ivankov was confident Magellan couldn't defeat him. Meanwhile, Luffy and the others had reached level 2. Luffy saw Ivankov fighting Magellan and wanted to go back to help. But, Bon Clay told him to trust Ivankov. Crocodile and Jinbei were confused, because the prisoners from level 2 had vanished. Meanwhile, Buggy continued freeing prisoners from level 1, so they could fight off the guards. Jinbei then told Luffy that many marine ships were stationed around the prison, and if they could steal one, they might be able to chase after Ace. Back with Ivankov, he was hit by Magellan's poison, but he was unharmed, because it only affected his mask. Magellan kept attacking, but Ivankov blocked every one of his blows. At this moment, Magellan realized he was only being toyed with, because he wanted to buy more time for Luffy. Suddenly, Ivankov started to get serious. He immediately attacked Magellan. At this time, Inazuma was still worried about Ivankov. Suddenly, he saw Magellan appear, which surprised him. Inazuma realized Ivankov had been defeated, so he immediately attacked Magellan. At that moment, Buggy's group was being chased by beasts, which made him terrified, because Buggy couldn't defeat those beasts. Suddenly, he bumped into Crocodile, which shocked Buggy and Mr. 3. They didn't expect Luffy's group to have defeated the beasts, which surprised them. They didn't understand why Luffy was with Jinbei. The prison guards thought Luffy's group was about to escape. Suddenly, Magellan caught up, which terrified the prisoners. Luffy realized Ivankov and Inazuma had been defeated, which made Luffy furious. As he was about to fight Magellan, Bon Clay stopped Luffy, because they couldn't defeat Magellan at that moment. Jinbei realized the guards were planning to block their way. So, he told Luffy to quickly run to the main gate, and everyone started firing at Magellan to support Luffy. As they were running away, Magellan used poison to attack them. Unexpectedly, Mr. 3 used wax to block Magellan's poison, which surprised everyone. Mr. 3 told everyone to run quickly, because he couldn't hold it much longer. While Luffy was excited, he told Jinbei to go seize a marine ship first, so he could stay behind and stop Magellan, because he had an idea. So, Jinbei trusted Luffy and ran off. Then Luffy asked Mr. 3 to fight alongside him, which scared him. After Mr. 3 heard Luffy's idea, he used wax to create a suit of armor for Luffy, which made Luffy very excited. At that moment, Magellan started attacking them, so Mr. 3 blocked his attack. Then, Luffy jumped up and delivered a powerful punch to Magellan. Other prisoners also supported Luffy. They thought they had already defeated Magellan. Surprisingly, he wasn't hurt at all. Meanwhile, Buggy's group had opened the gate to escape outside, which made them very excited. But, Buggy didn't see any marine ship there, which made them fall into despair, because they thought they'd be stuck there forever. But, Jinbei said the ships were still nearby. Suddenly, Jinbei lifted a giant gate, and he jumped into the water. It turned out he wanted to steal a marine ship. So, he used the gate as a makeshift boat. However, Jinbei still needed help. Thus, Crocodile and Mr. One went with him. Suddenly, Buggy also wanted to join, which made the prisoners very happy. So, Jinbei started swimming at high speed, even though he was carrying a heavy gate. Turns out Buggy thought it was safer to go with the warlords. Suddenly, the Marines attacked them, to stop Jinbei from reaching the ship. Suddenly, Jinbei dove underwater, which scared Buggy. He thought Jinbei had run away. But, Jinbei was actually using Fishman Karate. And he created a massive water column to launch Buggy's group onto the Marine ship, which surprised the Marines. Meanwhile, Luffy was still fighting Magellan. Unexpectedly, this time Luffy managed to block his attack. At this moment, Ivankov was covered by Magellan's poison. However, he was still alive, and he immediately injected hormones into his body. Meanwhile, Crocodile's group was surrounded by the Marines. As they were about to attack, Jinbei continued to use Fishman Karate. He instantly defeated the Navy soldiers, causing part of the ship to be destroyed. Jinbei decided to take this Marine ship. Meanwhile, Luffy was still fighting Magellan. He used a flurry of punches to block Magellan's poison. Unexpectedly, Luffy punched Magellan in the stomach, causing him to retreat. Magellan didn't think Luffy could hurt him. The prisoners also attacked Magellan to support Luffy. However, Magellan continued to stand back up. He decided to end this battle. So, Magellan coated his body in red poison. When Luffy rushed forward to attack, unexpectedly, Mr. Three's wax was corroded. It turned out this move of Magellan's was called Kinjite. He immediately created a demon out of poison, which surprised both Luffy and Mr. Three. So, everyone immediately started to run away. Magellan started attacking them. Unexpectedly, the poison spread very quickly, causing many prisoners to be poisoned. But, Magellan's target was still Luffy. Mr. Three said his wax no longer worked against this poison, because this poison could even corrode stone. At this moment, Crocodile was still fighting the Marines to seize the ship. However, Crocodile and Mr. One were too strong. They easily defeated the Marines. Meanwhile, Buggy was still pretending to be unconscious. Jinbei also blocked the Marines' cannonballs. At that time, Bon Clay was still worried about Luffy. Suddenly, he started running toward him. Everyone saw a giant poison demon. It frightened them, so they had to run away quickly. Meanwhile, Ivankov was carrying Inazuma outside, but he collapsed. So, Ivankov used the Hell Wink technique, which helped him fly to the upper level. At that moment, Magellan was chasing Luffy's group. Suddenly, Ivankov appeared, which shocked everyone. Bon Clay was very happy that he was safe. Then, Jinbei informed Luffy that he had seized a marine ship, and he told Luffy and everyone to jump into the water, which shocked them. But, Luffy still trusted Jinbei. Magellan was determined not to let them escape. So, Luffy decided to hold him back. Mr. Three immediately created a wax wall to block Magellan, while Luffy used Gear 3, and he kicked the wax wall, pushing Magellan back. But, Luffy shrank down. Unexpectedly, Magellan kept standing up. Luffy tried to wake Ivankov up. So, he continued using the Hell Wink technique. Everyone saw Magellan getting closer. Thus, Luffy told them to grab onto Ivankov when everyone was in danger. Ivankov used Hell Wink, helping them fly out of the prison, escaping Magellan's grasp. Everyone thought they would fall into the water. Luckily, a group of whale sharks saved them, which shocked Magellan. It turned out Jinbei had called the whale sharks, which made Luffy really excited, because Jinbei could talk to the whale sharks. Thanks to that, everyone was brought onto the ship, which made them very happy, because they had finally escaped from Impel Down. Then, Jinbei immediately steered the marine ship away from there. But, Magellan still didn't give up. He ordered a marine ship to come, so he could personally go after them. Magellan knew the prisoners wouldn't escape easily, because ahead of them was the Gates of Justice. At that moment, the Marines kept attacking them, which frightened everyone, because behind them were many marine ships. Suddenly, Luffy's group saw the Gates of Justice, which shocked them. Jinbei told them to head straight forward, but the Marines kept firing cannons at them. Crocodile and Luffy blocked the cannonballs. However, there were still too many Marines, which scared the prisoners. Suddenly, the Gates of Justice began to open. which surprised the vice admirals. While Luffy's group was overjoyed, even though they didn't know why the gates opened. At that moment, Magellan was also surprised. It turned out Mr. 2 had transformed into Magellan. He told the guards to open the gates of justice, while the Marines were blaming Magellan, because they didn't know why he helped the prisoners. When the real Magellan arrived, he was immediately surprised. At that moment, Luffy realized Bon Clay had stayed behind. While Bon Clay was very happy, because he had helped everyone escape. When Magellan ordered the gate to be closed, Bon Clay destroyed the switch, which made Magellan furious. However, the gates of justice were still closing, which made the prisoners anxious. But Luffy didn't want to leave Bon Clay behind alone. He told Jinbei to turn back and rescue Bon Clay. But Jinbei said they didn't have time, because if they turned back, many people would be in danger. It turned out Bon Clay had told Jinbei the plan beforehand, and he asked Jinbei not to tell Luffy. While Bon Clay was still smiling happily, it turned out he had previously transformed into Hannyabal, and he had touched Magellan's face, which made Magellan extremely angry. Suddenly, Luffy called out to Bon Clay. Luffy scolded Bon Clay for doing this, because in the past, he had also sacrificed himself to save Luffy's crew like this, and he declared that Luffy was his friend. At that moment, everyone burst into tears, because Bon Clay had sacrificed himself to save them. But Bon Clay didn't respond. The gate was about to close. Luffy said to him, "Thank you," which made Bon Clay burst into tears, because everyone was thanking him. So, Bon Clay said to Luffy, "You must save your brother no matter what," which made Luffy cry too. Finally, the gates of justice closed. Luffy remembered everything Bon Clay had done for him, which made him deeply heartbroken. Meanwhile, the Marines were helpless, because they had let Luffy's group escape. At that moment, Bon Clay decided to fight Magellan, which made everyone cry again. In the end, 241 prisoners escaped from Impel Down. On Blackbeard's side, he encountered Shiryu. It turned out Shiryu had brought the antidote for them, which made Blackbeard very happy, because Shiryu had decided to join his pirate crew. At that time, Buggy was throwing a party to celebrate everyone's escape from Impel Down. Meanwhile, Ivankov was treating Inazuma, but he still needed time to recover. At that moment, Luffy and Mr. 3 were still sad because Bon Clay was missing. Suddenly, Buggy came and told them to join the party, which made Luffy angry and punch him in the face. Meanwhile, Crocodile was talking with Jinbei. When Luffy came to Jinbei, he thanked Luffy for giving him the chance to save Ace. But Luffy felt glad to have Jinbei with him. When Buggy found out they were heading to Marineford, he was shocked, because that's where the battle between Whitebeard and the Marines would happen. Crocodile said they would have to join that battle, which made Buggy and Mr. 3 terrified. So, they asked Jinbei to stop the ship. Luffy told them to jump into the sea if they wanted to leave. But both of them had eaten devil fruits and couldn't swim. At that moment, many prisoners were frightened, because they didn't want to go to Marineford. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a transponder snail, which made everyone curious. Luffy immediately answered the call. It turned out to be an announcement from Marine headquarters. But he immediately said his name was Luffy, which shocked all the prisoners. The Marines also realized that the ship had been taken over by the prisoners. They thought Luffy and Buggy were the masterminds, which left Buggy in shock. And the Marines also found out that Buggy used to be a crew member on the Pirate King's ship, which surprised everyone. And Buggy was also a close friend of Shanks. The Marines thought Buggy was going with Luffy to rescue Ace. So, the Marines declared they would capture them. Suddenly, Luffy announced, "I will save Ace no matter what." Then, Luffy hung up the call. At that moment, the prisoners admired Buggy even more. They believed Buggy was a great pirate. Meanwhile, Buggy was worried. However, Crocodile and Jinbei didn't understand why someone with such a big background like Buggy was still so weak. Luffy remembered that Rayleigh had mentioned Buggy before, which shocked Buggy, because Luffy had met Rayleigh. While the prisoners were still extremely excited, they saw Buggy as a legendary pirate. However, Buggy thought being acknowledged by the Marines was actually a good thing, because he could build a reputation for himself. After that, he would defeat Whitebeard and become an emperor. He even dreamed of becoming the Pirate King. At that moment, Buggy's followers wanted to take over the ship. Jinbei and Crocodile were about to fight. Suddenly, Buggy gave an order. They would continue heading to Marineford, because his goal was to defeat Whitebeard. Buggy's followers saw him as if he were glowing, which made them admire Buggy even more. On Ace's side, he was being escorted to Marineford. At that moment, Luffy was sitting on the ship's bow. So, Jinbei came to talk to him. He realized that Luffy was very worried about Ace. Thus, he advised Luffy to get some rest, because Marineford is the greatest fortress in the world. On Weatheria Island, Nami was thinking of a way to return to Luffy. Harades ran over and offered Nami some cotton candy, which got stuck to her face. So, Nami hit Harades. However, Nami found the taste of the cotton candy quite good. When Nami found out the island moves using wind, she was shocked, because she didn't know when she could return to Sabaody. So, Harades told Nami that they could go down to the surface, because sometimes he runs out of money for research. He often goes to the surface to trade knowledge for money. Then Harades took Nami onto a ship, and he flew Nami down, which surprised Nami. At this moment, they had arrived at a drought-stricken land. He told the villagers he could make it rain for them, which surprised everyone, but they had to pay 100 million berries. However, the villagers couldn't afford it, so he decided to only charge 100 berries. Then Harades began using the machine on the ship to create bubbles, and he gave Nami some wind knots. She then used them to create wind that blew the bubbles into the sky. Unexpectedly, dark clouds appeared and it began to rain, which made the villagers very happy. While Nami was enjoying herself, she decided to stay there and return later using Weatheria Island, which made Harades very happy, because Nami liked science. When he was about to explain cloud bubbles to Nami, one accidentally exploded, which made Nami angry. On Mechanical Island, Franky was comfortably drinking tea, which disappointed Kitten, because Franky used to be much more exciting. The next morning, Franky woke up. He saw that he had slept outside. Suddenly, a cyborg snake appeared and attacked him, which surprised Franky. At that moment, many cyborg animals appeared and surrounded Franky. It turned out that Kitten wanted Franky to regain his wild instincts. However, Franky remained calm and composed. He still didn't fight back against the cyborgs. Suddenly, a cyborg monkey saw Kitten. When Kitten was in danger, Franky rushed in to help him. But he still tried to calm the cyborg monkey down. It kept punching Franky in the face, which made him angry. So, he started attacking them. Kitten saw Franky's passion return, which made him really happy. However, the tea had run out. So, Kitten led Franky to Dr. Vegapunk's base. He said that cola could be found there. It turned out Vegapunk was the one who created the cyborg beasts here. And he was also the one who created the pacifistas. Then, they broke into the facility, which triggered the alarm. Something appeared, surprising Franky. Meanwhile, Jinbei told Luffy that Marine headquarters was gathering the most elite forces in the world. So, a very fierce battle was coming. On Momoiro Island with Ivankov, Sanji was extremely exhausted, because he was constantly being chased by the queers. Sanji couldn't understand why they were so strong, which made him miss Nami and Robin even more. The next morning, they continued to chase him, leading Sanji to run all the way to the castle. At this point, Sanji was still being chased. Unexpectedly, there were many traps inside, causing Sanji to fall down, and he ended up meeting Caroline, who was the substitute queen in Ivankov's absence. They all greatly admired Ivankov, but Sanji didn't care. He just wanted to get off the island. Suddenly, Caroline made a proposal. If Sanji could defeat their strongest warrior, they would let him leave the island. So, Sanji agreed immediately, but he had to wear their traditional battle outfit, which turned out to be a dress, making Sanji extremely embarrassed. However, he was determined to leave the island. Unexpectedly, the opponent was none other than Caroline herself. When the match started, Sanji attacked right away, but Caroline moved incredibly fast, so Sanji couldn't land a single hit on her. Suddenly, Sanji noticed that Caroline was only staring at his underwear, which made Sanji embarrassed. Out of nowhere, Caroline started attacking Sanji, giving him a strange feeling. He felt like he was becoming a girl, and Sanji started to lose his masculine instincts. After that, he gradually blended in with everyone. Meanwhile, Chopper was bringing food to a baby bird, which made the bird very happy. It turned out that Chopper was treating its injuries. Earlier, Chopper had been hiding inside this cave. When he suddenly saw the baby bird fall down, he realized it had fallen out of its nest, and it was injured. So, Chopper took care of the baby bird. Suddenly, Chopper had an idea. He could raise the bird until it grew big enough to fly him back to Sabaody to reunite with Luffy. That thought made Chopper really excited. At night, Chopper slept next to the baby bird. But the next morning, he discovered the bird had disappeared, which made Chopper worried. So, he followed the bird's tracks. Suddenly, he saw some native tribespeople hunting nearby, which scared Chopper. Then, he accidentally bumped into the baby bird. That made Chopper really happy. Suddenly, they were discovered by the natives. So, Chopper and the baby bird started running away. Unexpectedly, they ran to the edge of a cliff. Luckily, a flock of birds arrived just in time. Chopper thought he was saved. But, the mother bird pushed Chopper off the cliff and took the baby bird back to its nest. Fortunately, Chopper landed safely. At that moment, Chopper was filled with joy, because the baby bird was reunited with its mother. Suddenly, Chopper was attacked again, forcing him to keep running. Meanwhile, on Robin's side, she had been captured. Her captors interrogated her, demanding to know Luffy's location. But, Robin refused to speak, which made them angry. Outside, the workers were being harshly exploited. Soren saw one person collapse from exhaustion, which made her worried. But, the guards wouldn't let them stop working. While Soren was concerned about Robin, Robin was still enduring torture. Yet she remained silent. Eventually, they locked Robin away. While Robin was thinking about her crewmates, she knew she couldn't waste time here. Outside, Soren was sneaking toward the prison to find Robin. Suddenly, the Revolutionary Army launched an attack. Taking advantage of the chaos, Soren slipped inside to meet Robin. But, she was discovered by a guard. Unexpectedly, the guard led Soren deeper into the facility. He was actually an agent of the Revolutionary Army. They then gave her the key to unlock Robin's handcuffs. Suddenly, enemy soldiers swarmed in. Just as they were about to attack, Robin used her devil fruit powers to take them all down. Meanwhile, the prison chief was trembling with fear, terrified that Robin would seek revenge. Back to Luffy, he was still deeply worried about Ace. Meanwhile, Usopp was being chased by carnivorous plants on the Boin archipelago, which frightened him greatly. Thankfully, Heracles saved him, though he punched Usopp in the face, sending them flying along with the man-eating plant. Heracles then told Usopp that he was the weakest creature on this island. So, if Usopp wanted to survive, he had to train. Then he led Usopp to a place full of food. This made Usopp excited, so he kept eating non-stop. Heracles told him he needed to balance it with training. But, Usopp was eating out of control. Before he knew it, he had turned into a chubby guy, which shocked Heracles. Suddenly, the island started to shake. Usopp saw a giant mouth beneath them, and it was swallowing everything. As Usopp fell, luckily, he grabbed onto some noodles and started eating them. Thanks to that, he survived. But, he had gotten even fatter. Heracles told him that in this condition, there was no way he'd survive on the island. Meanwhile, Zoro was with Perona. He had been running around but still couldn't find his 3 swords. Perona realized that he was a complete direction disaster, because she had already told him which room the swords were in. She got annoyed, and they kept arguing. In the end, she had to take Zoro there herself. As soon as Zoro got his 3 swords back, he immediately left, which shocked Perona, because she didn't want to be left alone on the island. At this moment, Zoro just wanted to return to Sabaody quickly. However, Zoro continued running toward the castle. This left Perona feeling helpless. So, she decided to guide Zoro. It turned out she also wanted to use Zoro to return. By now, they had entered some ancient ruins. Suddenly, Zoro was attacked. Fortunately, he managed to dodge it. But, Zoro was pushed back by the attack. Perona noticed that there were many enemies. On Brook's side, he also wanted to return to find his crewmates. When he went outside, he encountered the local villagers. Suddenly, Brook asked this girl, "Can I see your panties?" Unexpectedly, the men immediately showed their panties to Brook. This shocked him. After that, they begged Brook, because they believed Brook was Satan. They told Brook that this country had long been ruled by the Longarm tribe. They took all the money and captured men and women. This left the people in poverty and suffering. So, they wanted to beg Brook for help. And they saw Brook as their only hope. Suddenly, the Longarm tribe arrived. They immediately kidnapped the girl. So, the villagers begged Brook to help them. But, he didn't know what to do either. Brook realized that the villagers refused to fight. They only begged for help from others. So, Brook composed a song to help them. Meanwhile, Luffy's ship was still heading toward Marine headquarters. As the time for Ace's execution was drawing near, the Marines began bringing Ace to the execution platform, while the whole world was watching Marineford. No one knew whether Whitebeard or the Marines would win. Because in the past, Marineford had once been half-destroyed by Shiki the Golden Lion. Over at Sabaody Archipelago, many reporters and citizens were watching via livestream. They saw the Marines' strongest forces, which left them in awe, while Ace was being brought to the execution stand. At that moment, Garp was furious, because he opposed Ace's execution. But Sengoku said this held great significance for the future, and Garp had to take responsibility. This left Garp feeling powerless as he walked away. At that moment, over 100,000 Marine soldiers had gathered, along with 50 Marine ships surrounding Marineford. And at the center stood the 5 warlords of the sea. They were the key force of the Marines. Then came the 3 admirals. They were the strongest individuals in the Marine force. This made the Marines extremely excited. At that moment, Ace was remembering the words he once said to Luffy. One day we'll set sail. And we'll live freer than anyone else. Meanwhile, Luffy had spotted the gates of justice, which made him very happy. But, Jinbei didn't know how to get through the gate. By now, Ace had been brought outside, which made the Marines nervous, because he was the cause of this entire war. And Ace was placed on the execution platform. Suddenly, the fleet admiral appeared, surprising the Marines. Sengoku began announcing to the world the identity of Ace's father, which made Garp anxious. He had known this moment would come. But, Ace claimed his father was Whitebeard. However, Sengoku revealed the truth to the entire world. Ace's mother had sacrificed her life to protect him. Her name was Portgas de Rouge. She carried Ace in her womb for 20 months, which exhausted her and led to her death after giving birth. Then, Sengoku told the whole world. Ace was the son of the pirate king, Gold D. Roger. This revelation shocked the entire world. Everyone was stunned by the news. That's the end of today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in the upcoming videos. Thank you all for watching. Love you always.